please feel free to get bagels. We have them in the back.
You guys brought bagels for us?
Of course.
Wow, very thoughtful.
Absolutely.
We should do this more often. We don't get food.
Yeah, you're welcome anytime.
All right, well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the training presentation, Work Smarter, Not Harder. We want to thank everyone who took part in our data collection, whether you did a survey or an interview. Thank you again. Through that data collection and through a collaborative working with two members here at the CFE, we have provided a training session on the topics of strategic workplace management and stress management. So my name is Haley LeMay.
I'm Brian Eggenberger.
I'm Katie Bell.
So we are students at Eastern Michigan University in the Masters of Human Resource Management and Organizational Development program. So we are all in a class called Human Resource Development, where we were tasked with locating an external client, performing a training needs analysis on the organization, and then designing and developing an hour-long training program to perform with the organization. So we hope you guys enjoy it.
All right, so working hard for something we don't care about is called stress. Working hard for something we love is called passion. So through the surveys and talking to some of you, it's very clear to us that everyone here is really passionate about the work that you all do, which we all think is super awesome. So our purpose today is really to just give you some techniques to help you continue doing the work that you're passionate about and to continue being passionate about it.
So first, just a few ground rules. If everyone could either turn off their cell phones or put them on vibrate. If you need to leave the room at any time, please just do so quietly. We ask that you're respectful of your peers as well as us, and we will be the same. And like I said earlier, let's have some fun. So a little overview of the training session. First, we'll start with an icebreaker called Let's Get Moving. Christina said that everyone likes to do jumping jacks, so you're great at that. Right, convenient. And then we will go over our learning objectives. So our learning objectives are just what we hope all trainees to accomplish and understand by the end of the training session. Next, we'll lead into our 3 topics and their corresponding activities. Lastly, we'll wrap up with a relaxation activity, and then all trainees will fill out an evaluation.
All right, everyone, let's get moving. So on page 1 of your workbooks, after the title page, you will see the icebreaker activity. So for this, we are going to split into 2 teams. So I'm going to number you off 1 and 2. Please remember your number. 1s are going to be over here, and 2s are going to be over here. All right, so 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Great, we're even. So 1's over here and 2's over here. And make sure just one person on your team at least has a copy of the workbook. I don't want to So team 1. I'm so sorry. Great. Okay. So this is a little smaller of a group than we had, so we do have 7 activities, but some people are going to have to do more than 1. The first activity you're going to do is go through and assign every member of your group to at least 1 activity listed on that page. So we're going to give you about 30 to 45 seconds to do that.
All right, who wants what?
Oh my goodness.
You're the scribe.
All right, we're not doing the push-ups. Okay.
Where's the first name? I don't think them yet.
You can't push
Yeah, make her fly.
I can do the push-ups.
I don't know how to do that.
Laura, what do you do?
It's not my first one.
Square.
The one part
This is you.
Just half the rest. Okay, and her whole last name. Should we go ahead and do it?
Oh, don't start yet.
Okay.
Oh,
You have
one
to
minute to
do
assign.
another 5 push-ups.
I don't know if I can.
Well, I'm
we start?
No, don't start yet.
Oh,
No.
Oh, we get there. Okay.
Okay, is everyone all set with their assigned? Okay, so for the last activity, the running, do you guys want to do around this table or just back and forth in the office?
I was thinking up and
First
down the
floor.
staircase.
I was thinking around the diag.
Who's the runner on your team?
All right, let's do back and forth in the office then. Does that sound good? All right, so
All right. So this is a relay race, so make sure that you have the batons
Oh,
and
yeah, great.
you hand it off to
Oh.
each person.
yeah, so the first person doing the first activity start with the baton.
Jumping jack person.
That's me.
Alright, I'll get out of the way.
Once you're completed with your activity, pass the baton to the person who's next.
Okay, where do you guys? The name?
Oh, we have a space right here.
You dropped that baton, you're done.
I think we have to clarify the running, so are we gonna run?
Down the
To the-
first floor.
Is it you two?
Just go down, down and back. Down and back on your side.
Oh,
obviously.
that's
Yeah.
Hey.
Who's running?
Nick.
All right, guys, stakes are high. We have a prize for the winning team.
Jumping jacks are first.
Y'all.
Are there any questions?
Relay.
Are there any questions?
I think you're
Are we doing this
Okay.
parallel or sequentially?
I'm just.
Sequentially.
We have to get, like, she's gonna run.
Yeah.
No.
Running's last, so.
I think you have to be stationary.
We're not all doing all
We have
of
to
it.
go
We
first.
know that.
Do you want to?
Happening.
Any other questions?
Where you wanna go?
Calling back.
Yeah, it's terrible.
All right, are you guys ready?
We'll go down to the
Yeah.
end of the hall.
Do it.
Alright.
All right. Ready, set, go.
Yeah, sign.
Wow.
That way.
Eric!
Eric!
Oh,
No, it's
okay.
not.
John Tree!
That's not me. That's
Oh,
That's
that's
it.
great.
Let's go.
Hey, here.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Just do it.
Yeah,
Okay.
bring that back.
Looking good, Rock.
Squat. Squat me.
Nick, you gotta do something. Listen to this bowling. We're in a union, bro.
No coffee breaks.
Yeah.
Complete one lap, right? It's Charlie's.
Count.
Run.
Fly!
I don't know where they're going.
One lap around.
Oh, good
And
go.
I'm going back. Okay.
Well done.
They're pretty close. I'm nervous.
Hmm.
Charlie, Ron, you need to bring it here, right?
Oh!
Alright.
We're all winners.
Yay. Alright.
Alright, guys.
That's good. Pretty sure.
Great job.
Who's the airplane?
Did you come in first?
I don't know who
I'm
won.
all the way down to that.
Team two.
The ice has been broke.
Team two.
Well done, everyone. I didn't think we should
Yeah,
get
with
more.
this side or this side? They won?
What's the race on?
Sure.
I'm declaring this team.
Team two.
We all won.
Everyone.
If it's candy, we unshare.
You were.
We might need one more. Oh, I lied. Everyone doesn't get one.
Everyone doesn't get one.
That's not how it works. You got one.
Only the winners get one.
Alright.
Oh,
Alright, everyone, so we're gonna get into it now. We're gonna go over our learning objectives. So, following this 1 hour training session, trainees will be able to apply one work-life balance technique to an identified lacking area. Trainees will be able to apply all 4 categories of the Eisenhower matrix to better plan their daily tasks, and trainees will be able to incorporate at least 2 stress management techniques into their daily lives.
All right, so we're going to start off with work-life balance because as you saw, the training is titled Work Smarter, Not Harder. So when you're increasing your overall life quality, you're going to be increasing your work quality as well. So can anyone name some activities or areas of their life that may be neglected due to a lot of time and energy put into other areas?
Exercise.
Great. Anyone else?
Friendship.
Friendships, that's a good one. All right, so those are going to be related to some of the things we're going to go over. So I just have a quick quote. It says, "We need to do a better job of putting ourselves higher on our own to-do list." And that's just something I want everyone here to keep in mind throughout this module and throughout the training because it's going to be very relevant to what we're doing. For this module, you're going to want to open to page 3 of your workbook. Some of you I see are already on that page. That's great. So, of course, we've all heard of work-life balance. It is an increasingly prevalent topic due to advancements in modern technology. There is more of a blurred line between work life and home life, and that can be great for employees and employers, but it does also cause some confusion and blurred lines as to where home life and work life may end and stop. So what we're going to do here is try to identify some of those areas that we're not putting the effort into that we want to due to some of those blurred lines. We'll see here that there's been about a 23% decrease in perceived work-life balance of Americans over the 3-year span due to these technology advancements and blurred lines. So on page 3 of your workbooks, there's going to be a circle there that identifies 8 areas that may make up a balanced person's life. So currently there you'll see finances, career, family and friends, self-improvement, relaxation, romantic relationships, fitness, and health. So if anyone thinks that one of these categories doesn't apply to them, feel free to take about 15 to 20 seconds to cross it out and sub in something else. Some suggestions I have for subs are traveling, adventure, spirituality, but feel free to do anything that you think applies better to your life. So we're going to take a little time to do that.
What do you heard that for
Are we all set? Great. Okay, so for this exercise, what we're going to be doing is putting an X towards the outer edge of the circle if this is an activity or area that we feel that we put a lot of time and effort into. It's going to be closer to the center of the circle if it's something that we don't feel that we put a lot of time and effort into. For example, if I spend a lot of time on my romantic relationships but neglect maybe my family and friendships, my circle for those 2 components will look like this. You guys are, of course, going to fill out all 8 pie pieces. So just take about 30, 45 seconds, however long you need to do that really quick. And if you have any questions, let me know.
Outside is good.
Outside is good, inside is bad. And feel free to do in the middle, of course.
I did too.
Haven't you ever watched Mad? You have your family and then you have your romantic. There may be some.
All right.
But very fair.
So what we're going to do next is we're going to connect the X's into a circle like you see on the screen above. Of course, if you don't have a perfect circle, that's fine. Here's the example. It's a great place to start.
Squiggly line.
Oh yeah, I guess. Or like gas.
All right, so some of you may have guessed, but of course the idea behind this exercise was to identify our current status of work-life balance. And so if you have more, a circle that looks more like this, maybe you're lacking in a few areas, and that's great. So you're identifying those that you need to improve, and we're going to work on that in a little bit. But ideally, you would want to see that large circle around the outer edges. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're dedicating the same amount of time to each activity, but just that you're allocating your time in a way that's fulfilling to you. So that can be different for everyone, obviously. So right now, I just want everyone to go through their circle and indicate one or two areas they identified as lacking that they may want to improve upon in the near future. And yeah, just jot it down in your workbook just for moving forward. I want to ask, does anyone feel that the circle they drew is somewhat indicative of their work-life balance currently? Yeah? All right, good. So we're going to move on. And what you see on page 3 and 4 are some strategies that I've identified to improve each of those 8 areas that you saw on the circle. So there's quite a few listed in your workbook on those pages. I'm going to go over just a few now that I think are going to be the most realistic for people to accomplish in a smaller time frame, just so you're able to assess your progress more quickly and make strides. So of course, for health, you can track your eating on either an app or with pen and paper just for a week or two, and then look and see if you're meeting the nutritional guidelines that you would specifically like to meet. So if you want to eat more vegetables, take notice on that. If you want to eat more protein, less calories, look for that. And then after that 2 weeks where you've been logging, make a plan to address those specific areas and implement it into your daily life. For finances, we can also do budgeting apps in a notebook, websites that will look at our current spending allocation, and then we can try to improve on either decreasing or increasing in certain areas so that we're better reaching our current financial goals. For career, of course, we can ask for professional development opportunities. We can look for mentoring or professional development opportunities in the area. For family and friends, one thing that can be useful is to schedule an actual time and date to see either someone that lives far away, so schedule a phone call or Skype session, or somebody who lives nearby that you maybe just kind of take for granted, that you can schedule an actual date to either go out with them or have them over to your house. For self-improvement, something that can be useful is volunteering because it can be fulfilling in many ways. You can look on U of M's website, look through Google or Facebook, try to find an event, maybe go with friends, something that is related to an interest of yours. For relaxation, a very helpful tip would be going to bed at a consistent time every night. And to do that, some people say to get away from blue light about an hour or two before bed. So maybe find a replacement activity through besides your phone or your TV that you can include. For romantic relationships, obviously scheduling a date night in or out every week or bi-weekly is something that can kind of keep the relationship going and give you time to reconnect. And then for fitness, of course, we do have some Healthy resources in there. I know you guys have done some things through that. On page 12, you'll see the link to the website along with some further information. You can also schedule a tour at a new gym, try out a new class for free, or go ahead and track your steps using a free pedometer app, and then make a goal to increase those maybe weekly by 500 or so. So of course, using those strategies and your identified lacking areas, what we're all going to do now is go through and try to write a strategy that we can implement into our own lives. Feel free to do 2, but we're going to try to aim for at least 1 just to make it a little easier. And what I want everyone to do, it's on page 4 of your workbooks, is make it very specific, very measurable, something that you'll be able to assess your progress in objectively. My example is that I want to do more time in relaxation, but instead of just saying that, I say that I want to spend more time in relaxation by going to bed at the same time every night, 9 p.m., and putting my phone away an hour before and switching to reading. So do try to make it as specific as possible and something that you'll be able to assess yourself. All right, I'm going to give everyone a few minutes to do that. If you want to share after, we'll have some time for that, but nobody needs to.
Do you guys like this program at Eastern?
We like it. Thanks for asking.
What do you want to do?
That's a good question.
That's a big
specifically.
He wants to
Uh,
train.
I am interested in training. I haven't gone yet, so you'll see how I do. And just let me know if you think it's the right career path. But, yeah, currently I'm interested in some sort of training.
This is a required class for everyone.
Mm.
All right, it looks like everyone is almost done. So now just think about whether or not you want to share yours with the group. Like I said, it's absolutely fine if nobody does, but if anyone wants to, now is the time. Anyone?
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
So my 3 things that I said were self-improvement, fitness, and finances.
Great.
So for fitness, I said schedule 3 times a week to attend gym.
Here you go.
Basically need to use our membership.
Do you use the U of M one?
No, we
Oh,
use,
gotcha.
well, we don't use any. We pay for one. We pay for one, but we do not use it. So that's the first part of it. Seek out
A little bit of
courses.
finances in there too.
Yeah.
Now.
It all makes sense. The next one is for the self-improvement. I have seek out courses for professional development.
Okay.
And then the last one was for finances, and I said look over spending and discuss them with our financial advisor.
Okay, great. The one thing I would say maybe for the professional development, give yourself like a date that you want to do it by, or how many options you want to look out or schedule for yourself, just so it's something that you can look at and say that you've actually accomplished it. But I think those are all great goals. Does anybody else want to share? Okay.
My hobbies have been suffering lately, so I've written down that I should spend 30 or 45 minutes reading before bed. So
Okay.
maybe like an hour per weekend.
Did you say every day then?
Every day. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Anyone else? Totally fine, but thank you everyone who did share. So that is one way you can hold yourself more accountable to your goals, is by sharing them with the people around you. Another way that can be really useful is to maybe type up your goal, print it off, put it at your desk, your bathroom mirror, and then your kitchen fridge, just so you're seeing it throughout the day at many different times. And then you're going to want to assess your progress maybe every week or so. And eventually what I would like everyone to do is try to look back at that circle and see if they've made any progress in building it a little bit, bringing it out. And so then, while complete work-life balance may seem unachievable, making these small, attainable, realistic, measurable goals is going to help us make those small improvements that builds it overall. So hopefully 6 months from now, we all have a little bit rounder circles. Now, just to focus, since we have a lot of tasks on our hands, we're going to be implementing even more possibly. We're going to have to focus on prioritization, so I'm going to hand it over to Brian to speak about that.
Thank you, Haley. Awesome. So we're going to be focusing on pages 5 and 6 of your workbooks for prioritization. So prioritization of tasks, the first most important piece to define is urgent versus important tasks. So urgent tasks are tasks that require your attention right now and have immediate consequences. Important tasks help you achieve your long-term goals or values and may not have specific deadlines attached to them. So first, step 1, and we're not doing this, just going through the process. So step 1 would be to create a list, a to-do list of the tasks you have for the week or the day, depending on if you have a lot for one day, maybe focus on that day. If you've maybe a slower week, focus on the whole week. Next would be to categorize that list into the Eisenhower matrix. So the Eisenhower matrix is the tool that we're going to focus on the most today. So The top left, and again, in your workbooks, this is on page 6, I believe, just for reference. So if you can focus on the top left quadrant right now, we'll be talking about those urgent and important tasks. So these tasks are your top priorities. Examples would be project deadlines or medical emergencies. So the action step here is to do those right away. So those are do as soon as possible, your top priorities to focus on. Next, we will go over to the top right quadrant of important yet non-urgent. So these tasks would include anything health-related but non-medical emergencies, relationships, whether they're friend relationships, romantic relationships, and your long-term dreams. So the action step here would be to schedule and do these tasks soon. So it's important to do these after you're done with your top priorities. Third, we'll focus on the bottom left quadrant of urgent and non-important. So these tasks, it's important to reschedule them, or you can delegate these, whether they're a personal task, delegate them to a friend, family member. If they are a professional task, to a colleague. Examples would be any sort of interruptions you may get, being a random phone call, email, text, things of that nature. Lastly, we'll focus on the bottom right quadrant of non-important and non-urgent tasks. So examples of these tasks would be watching TV, checking social media. The action step would be do later or just avoid completely, not always necessary to be accomplished. So now we'll have a quick quiz. There, unfortunately, is no prize for this quiz, but it is still important to do your best. So, if everyone could focus on page 5 of their workbook here. So we're going to be categorizing that list of tasks right there into the blank Eisenhower matrix on the next page. So, if everyone could work with the person next to them to go through, and you do not need to write the whole sentence out. Feel free just to write the number. And before you do this, there's no exact right answer. I'd say there's about one task that should go in one quadrant, but the other ones are slightly fluid depending on what else you have going on throughout that day. So feel free to get started on that.
For this one.
So I think it's important. So, yeah. So I'm just gonna put it down.
So maybe you're
Sorry.
all right.
I don't think you can delegate that. We're gonna text them back. Do that now, depending on what else we're here. I think that one is
I'll put it up here.
Eliminate it.
No.
Somebody needs to come help this person.
Yes. No, that's not, no, you're not saying.
We have another one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would need three. Four next to here. Three might be a decided that's not to do with
Right.
that. Oh my gosh, urgent. Do it now. Although,
I'm putting that
you're gonna have to. You're gonna have to delegate to
check to see what
So Jen's got like 3 numbers.
you could have much going on.
Tell her to make copies.
See if the other one's talking.
Why?
Important but not
It depends on what it is.
That's what I thought.
It's just like, this is too late.
I'm gonna put it on.
Okay, we're sure.
You need to modify urgency. That can go. Remember,
But now it's once like but when I do
Important but not urgent.
because now they kind of ballpark, right? They usually do it by geography.
Oh, it's two minutes.
I used to get a
Really move on.
now they can't.
Yeah, it's always like,
Which is good and bad because
like, are you free?
Yeah.
Or do you like,
I'm about 1,000
She
shades of pink.
obsolete.
Yeah.
We really need
All right, how's everyone feeling? Feeling okay? Feeling done? Feeling good? Okay. Awesome. Now we'll go over how I filled out my matrix. Don't worry if it's not exactly like mine. Like I said, these can be in a couple categories besides one, and we'll get to that one, and I hope we can all recognize that one. So, can anyone want to volunteer and let us know where they put number 1 about that sore throat?
Urgent and important. Yeah.
Urgent and important?
Oh, not
Is it
urgent.
urgent?
Kind of like
and-
not urgent.
Yeah.
Do we have another thought on it?
Yeah, I think because it's not, it's something I can schedule later. I'm gonna actually have to schedule a time to go to the doctor anyways, so.
So you put that in.
You didn't expect all of
Important,
us.
important and non-urgent?
Yeah, not
Okay.
important, or important, not
What if it's
urgent.
me? We're learning a lot about our colleagues.
So I put this in important and non-urgent. So I put it there because it's a non-medical emergency, but obviously something that you can deal with
Here's your circle on your health.
as soon as possible. Yeah, you don't get to see my but right, so this one obviously could go in either of the top categories here, something that should be dealt with pretty soon, depending on what kind of tasks you have going on throughout that day, and I guess how important you personally feel about your sore throat could be in either one of those. So number 2, the project that needs approval. Any ideas here?
Is it at a university?
How did you take it, I guess?
What did you say? Pardon? We put it as urgent and important.
Urgent, important? Any other ideas?
We put it as not urgent. Yeah, hours a long time. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna seizure by you, bro.
So I put this in urgent and important, depending on what other tasks you have. If you have something more time sensitive than an hour from now. An example that we went over was project deadlines. So this one would fall under important and urgent, depending on what other tasks you have going on throughout that day. So number 3, that text you get from your friend about the game.
Delete.
Delete. So delete seems like a harsh word here, but maybe depending on the friend.
Just put it in 3 different boxes.
Okay, I wrote pretty much non-urgent. Awesome. So I also put in non-urgent, unimportant, something that can be dealt with later. Kind of last on that priority list. Number 4, checking the LinkedIn post. Decide. All right. And then everyone else said, sorry.
Not urgent.
Okay. I also put it in non-urgent and unimportant, but could be, depending on what you have going on throughout that day, depending on what you posted.
He's trying to find the letter over here.
But this would be under the social media category. Just your job has to do, okay. There you go.
Nick's offended.
So anyone else, maybe in a different category, but understandable. Number 5,
We put that as our top priority.
Oh, yeah, definitely. That was the one I think you said we should all.
that's good. That's good. Yeah. If you didn't, there'd be an issue. But awesome. Yeah. I also put in urgent and important. Your colleague having a seizure, falling under a medical emergency, something that needs to be dealt with right away. Number 6, We need to make 20 copies before the meeting starts in 10 minutes. Delegate. So urgent and unimportant. It's also where I place that. The task that can be delegated, professional task to a colleague.
What if you're on the bottom of the rung and you can't delegate?
Well,
You can always delegate regardless of where you're at.
Oh, okay. Circular
Yeah.
delegation.
she took the words right out of my mouth. Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say.
Big job.
It's a great
20 copies.
So the seventh one about your friend going live on Facebook, social media. I don't know where you put this one. Yep, I also put this in non-urgent, unimportant, something that can be dealt with later. We did talk a little bit about this since going live has a time bound on it, but I'm glad you guys didn't think that was that important. So,
It's safe. You can watch it later.
oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Never mind then. And number 8, your significant other wants to talk. Decide, delete, decide. Okay. Awesome. Also put in decide something that is obviously important to your relationship, your goals, but not exactly urgent, can be dealt with after those top priorities. Awesome. Well done, everyone. So I hope now that you've all have a strategy to prioritize your tasks. You feel a little bit less stressed out about your daily workload. And if not, well, Katie's going to talk about stress management.
All right. So, who here has ever felt stressed? Right. Pretty much everyone, right? So, stress is very common in our lives. So, what is stress? So, stress is a neurological, physiological response that our body has to stressors that we encounter throughout the day. So, not all stress or stressors that we encounter is bad. Some stressors can actually be positive and encourage us to perform better. So what I want to talk about today is why stress management is important. So I want to focus on healthy techniques to manage stress. So can anybody tell me what you do when you feel really stressed out?
Eat.
Eat? Okay.
Eat your feelings.
Sleep? Okay. Anything else?
Freak out.
Freak out? Okay. Perfect. So as you can see, everyone kind of handles stress differently. So it's important to take potentially negative ways of handling stress and handle it in a more positive way. So stress can have long-term effects on your health. So prolonged stress can increase your risk of cardiovascular disease. So why is this? So if we are overeating, if we are inactive, if we're sleeping all the time, smoking, drinking, all of those factors can impact our high blood pressure, high cholesterol, which in turn is going to impact our risk of cardiovascular disease. So that is why it's really important that we turn negative stress management techniques into more positive ones. So prolonged stress can also affect our digestive health, can make us bloated, just generally uncomfortable. So stress can kind of show itself in many different ways, and stress can also affect your sleep. So as sleep decreases, stress tends to increase, and as stress increases, sleep decreases. So when you're really stressed out, your mind is racing, it's really hard to get to sleep, but that in turn kind of increases your stress, so it's cyclical. So prolonged stress can also have an effect on your relationships. Stress brings out the worst in people, and it can make you angry, irritable, frustrated. You focus on negative aspects of situations or people more so than you would typically, so things get under your skin a little bit easier, so it can have an impact on those relationships that you have. In addition, it can impact your job performance. So job performance is a big one. Stress can impact your job in several different ways. So stress for decision making. If you are super stressed out, you might not want to make decisions. You don't have time to deal with it. You don't even want to think about it. So you don't make a decision that you need to make, or you make a rash decision, which can impact your job and potentially other people. So having a sense of dread. You wake up in the morning, gosh, you have to come to work. otherwise wouldn't be that bad of an activity, but you are so stressed out that you can't even fathom having to be here, and then once you're here, you just have a really bad feeling throughout the day because you are so stressed out. So moodiness, we talked about that a little bit in the last slide. It causes you to be irritable, going from one extreme to the next. Maybe you lash out at people that you wouldn't otherwise lash out at. This can also impact your stress. You know, if you're doing that to your coworkers, your boss, your clients, you know, that can have a really negative impact on your job. So procrastination and inefficiency. If you are really stressed out, the likelihood of you wanting to do a super good job on all of your tasks right away is not very likely. So you're more likely to kind of push things out, avoid them, and then when you absolutely have to do them, you're not going to put all of your effort into doing them, so it's going to be done inefficient. And then burnout and exhaustion. So all of that kind of leads to, you know, all of your tasks that you normally do that are just fine. They're tedious, they're really hard to do, you just don't want to do them, and at the end of all of that, you are just so exhausted and you are burnt out. So Haley talked a little bit about how work-life balance has kind of been on the decrease, and that really leads into burnout. Burnout is as high as we've ever seen it because there is such a blurred line with what is work and what is, you know, my life, and how do I navigate that. So don't wait until stress damages your relationships, health, or quality of life. Start practicing stress management techniques today. So we are going to do an activity. We're going to get moving a little bit again. So we're going to do desk yoga. So this is an easy activity that you can do at your desk, at home, really wherever you want to do it. This is meant for, you know, kind of clearing your mind and calming you down. So on page 8 of your notebook, there are pictures of every pose that we're going to do today. I also have pictures up here, and I will be participating with all of you. So use these techniques. If you are, you know, uncomfortable doing any of these poses, please know your limitations. You do not have to do them. But first, before we get into that, we're going to talk about breathing. So meditative breathing is super important to yoga, to mindfulness, to just kind of freeing your mind. So it's really important for this that we're breathing in through our nose and exhaling through our mouth and really paying attention to our breath. In your notebook, you also have a longer step-by-step instruction on how to do meditative breathing that's a little bit more in-depth than what we're going to be doing here. So if you want to take a look at that, this again is something that's super easy for you to just kind of step back from whatever your stressors are and just takes a few minutes and take these breaths, and hopefully it'll help relax you. So without further ado, we are going to start with our desk yoga. So our first pose is a sitting pose. So if everybody would sit in their seat with their feet flat on the ground and their hands resting on their thighs. So we are going to do about 2 breaths in each of these poses. Typically you would want to do this 5 to 10 breaths, a couple minutes in each pose, whatever feels best for you. But we're just going to go 2 for the sake of time. So if everybody would inhale and exhale, inhale and exhale. Perfect. So from here, we are going to stretch our arms up, touch our palms together, and we are going to reach towards the ceiling, and we're going to inhale and exhale, inhale and exhale. All right, and now if everyone can stand up. So taking your right wrist in your left hand, we're gonna stretch towards the ceiling but also lean towards the side. And we're gonna inhale and exhale, inhale and exhale, and then switch to the other side. Inhale and exhale, inhale and exhale. Perfect. All right, so from your standing position, take each elbow in either of your palms, still reaching towards the ceiling, and inhale and exhale, inhale and exhale. All right. So now, if you put your fingertips on the edge of your desk and pop your heels up off the floor and kind of take a seated position as far down as feels comfortable for you. And then we are going to inhale and exhale. Inhale and exhale. All right, so in this same position, we're going to do the framed pose again. So we'll inhale and exhale. Inhale and exhale. All right, so with your feet now flat on the ground, still kind of in a seated pose, reach your arms up to the ceiling and inhale and exhale. Inhale and exhale. All right, and then our final pose is just a finishing pose, just like in the beginning, with our feet flat on the ground, hands rested on our thighs, and we'll inhale and exhale. Inhale and exhale. All right, perfect. So that might have been, a little clunky off at the beginning. If you keep practicing this, it'll get better. And again, you're going to want to focus on your breath. Spend a couple minutes in each of those poses, 5 to 10 breaths or more, whatever feels good for you. And that is going to allow you to, kind of let go of some of your stress, kind of clear your mind and re-energize you because you're moving around and you're just taking time for yourself. So, in summary, stress management is really important to incorporate into your life. It is important to handle stress in a healthy way so we can get away from some of the negative effects that stress can have on our health, our relationships, and our quality of life. So we talked about the meditative breaths a little bit. Like I said, there are step-by-step instructions, or you can do something just as simple as inhaling through your nose and exhaling through your mouth, just paying attention to those breaths. So exercising, spending time in nature, sleeping well, connecting with your friends, eating well, all super important for stress management in your life. We have resources for exercising and nutrition in your handbook, so please look at those. We just give you some ideas, and Haley talked about a lot of different things that you can do to increase those things. And lastly, make lists, prioritize. I know that everyone at work is always super busy, so, it doesn't have to be as intense as an Eisenhower matrix, but if you just think about the things that you need to do for the day, and hopefully, you're going to take a few minutes to yourself every hour, every couple of hours to really step back from your tasks and put yourself on the top of your to-do list. So we are going to close our training with an activity called Do You Mind?
So for this activity, first, if everyone could please shut your eyes. Feel free to take a few breaths in your nose, out of your mouth, and try to clear your mind of anything that's been stressing you out lately, whether it's personally, professionally, anything that's been on your mind lately. Just take about 20 seconds here. Awesome. Glad no one fell asleep. Everyone can open your eyes. All right. So for this activity, if everyone could please refer to your index card in your workbook.
It's in the front pocket.
Awesome. So now if you could, please write down anything that has been stressing you out lately, personally, professionally. Just take a note of it on your index card. And before you do that, don't worry, no one else will be seeing this. Your eyes will be the only ones on this piece of paper. sorry, is everyone done? Good. I don't want to add stress by cutting off your time here. Okay, awesome. So now if everyone could please take your index card and rip it up. Rip it up into as many pieces as you'd like. And then place those shreds of paper in the recycling bins in the middle there.
Feel free to pass them around.
Yeah. Awesome. So obviously, just ripping up your stress doesn't completely eliminate it, but now that we've learned some stress management activities, it's important to be able to focus on what is stressing you out and focus on how we can combat that stress.
So thank you again, everyone, for being a part of this training session. We really hope that you're able to use this knowledge and some of these techniques in your daily work and home lives. Of course, we have some additional resources in your workbook, so please keep those. Keep them at your desk or at home. We have those healthy guides we talked about, nutrition, exercise, meditative breathing, mindfulness podcast, etc. So have fun with those. If anybody has any questions, now is going to be the time for that. Additionally, we have our information on the screen, so feel free to reach out to either one of us with questions, comments, or feedback about our training process.
All right, so if there's no questions, we just really want to thank everyone for being here and participating. We hope that you had a lot of fun. I know that we had a lot of fun, not only presenting this, but planning all of this to being here today. So if you would, just take a few minutes before you leave today and fill out the evaluation that you can find at the back of your handbook. We will be collecting those. And on your way out, please grab a bagel, and we hope that you have a great rest of the day, and thank you so much.
Thank you.